and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
For the World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Hello and welcome again to another edition of the Rights and Wrongs Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. How are you, ladies and gentlemen? Speaking for myself, I've been busy. Busy. Since I now have one other young adult around the house, and he's making his march toward going off into the world. There's been some things to take care of. I mean, not bad, but just part of the process, and to get him on his next stage of life. So, yeah, it's been taking up some time. Good way, but it's been taking up a little time. But I am still here. I'm still around. I pop back in when necessary. I mean, family things had to be taken care of first, and then you come back to your fun. And this is my fun. This is one of those things that makes my weekends go by faster when I'm at the job, because I've given myself self-imposed work by taking notes for a while for the majority of the time that it's airing. And then I get to come here and do this. So, have my little moment of fun doing the review, being Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert or whatever modern day criticisms we might be able to apply that to. Anyhow, as it is, this is a episode that I had to quite literally kind of take a break from. I watched it, and it wasn't that it was driving me up the wall or anything like that. It's just, it did have a detour. And of course, as we get into the show, you'll know where that fork in the road is. If you're listening to this now, you probably already have a pretty good idea where that fork in the road is. But I didn't want to start reviewing it while that was fresh on my mind. I was like, I want to take a moment. Let me use the time that I have to do some other things, to just let that marinate for a second, so I don't just leap into this episode and start off on it on the wrong foot. So I gave it a little time, came back to it, watched the majority of it again, and for the most part, my gut instinct was true. There are a couple of things that I kind of like, okay, I can see that a little differently. But for the bulk of this episode, I say that my gut instinct was fair. If nothing else, I'll say fair. I won't say right. I won't say wrong. I'll just say it was fair, if nothing else. In my opinion, I'm sure I will hear it if I was not. But it was, it's good. What would I define this one as? If we're going to break this off into the four quads of this episode, 3 out of the 4 were fairly good. 3 out of the 4 were fairly good. By the time we got to the 4th, that's when it becomes questionable. And then I can't even really say it was questionable out of performance. That's the other thing. I honestly can't even say that. I can't say, well, they screwed up and they did this and that. It's like, It's broken record time. It's the narrative. It's the narrative. The narrative that walked into this particular segment is the thing that got me. But we will get to all of that momentarily because we're not going to go through the normal build of the show. We are going to go right into the action. We're going to go right into the review. So let's kick that off. Let's start our review. And it will be for WoW episode 421. That is season 4, episode 21, title Alliance Takeover. The air date, February the 28th in most markets. And the chronological number is going to be 177. And it started off with a recap of the previous week's main event, which was Penelope Pink taking on Tormenta, basically showing her regaining the championship. So, I mean, it already starts laying the foundation of what will lead into the main event for this episode. Brief recap, bring the audience up to speed, set the table in the next segment, follow through. Fine. None of those things are wrong. You got to see who was the defending champion. You got to see who became the champion. And that champion and her manager walked out to address the audience following that. So absolutely nothing wrong there. And then this rolls off into the WoW, be positive, show open. Be yourself, be strong, and win. All that good stuff. And I think that they now have made sure that we see that Penelope Pink's name is on the championship. So I guess bravo to her. The next segment after the opening is the introduction of the Fab Four. They enter with their opening promo. This begins with Lana Starr boasting about their championship win and dominations in the title, the title scene. Nigel puts the team over big, which can't fault it for that, nor can I even remotely say that Lana Starr did anything wrong. So Lana Starr has been, as far as what I expected and what I got, is a breath of fresh air. And I know I've said it on a couple of occasions because I don't know whether she's just really good at reading the script and making it come off as a natural feeling thing, or she's just got it and you can give her the bullet points and she can go out there and do it. But she sounds, and I'm saying this comparative to what she was as Lana Starr wrestler. When she was running around, David, this is my show. This is the Lana Starr show. You know, that. That's a different person than this Lana Starr here. This Lana feels like she has it. And it bears repeating. I mean, I know I say it pretty much every time she comes out. But as it is right now, she probably stands as not just on screen as their most accomplished manager, which at this point she would have to be. 5-time set of tag team champions, the champion herself, 2 times with Pink and a tag team championship outside of Miami Sweet Heat. She pretty much set it on her own. Between all of us, we've had the time, which is like 9 times. And yeah, I am not ever going to go around parading the fact that Lana Starr was once a WoW champion, because it will point the finger at what people would expect WoW, or at least most wrestling fans. It would point the finger at what some of those fans expect out of WoW. It's like, why was she the champion? Her, really, that. And there's no real great match that you can point it to be like, well, no, look at her. See, this is why she was champion. That really doesn't exist in that regard. But it works in the promo. cannot knock that. It works in the promo. It works in the promo that however she got that championship, and at this point I would probably retcon just a little bit of that. Because as far as I know, there's no existing footage that shows Lana Star having won or beaten anybody for the championship. She just showed up with it. And I don't think that most of the Wild fans are going to go out of their way to go back and try to seek it out. So, I mean, I would have her acknowledge that she was the champion, but never explain how she got it. If it comes up, she just change the subject and move on, or whatever the case may be. Just know that we know that that it was a phantom switch, and just treat it as such. But she carries on with that. Again, good out of her, bringing it up, putting over the team, and by the team I mean the entirety of the group, putting over Penelope Pink. And when she does this, it's all good stuff. As they're doing the McLean talks about how Pink won the title. He said, yeah, and it was the knee that won the title for her. I was like, it was? I was pretty clear that it was the Pretty in Pink finish that she used, not the knee. There are times when I wonder, like, what is it that he's watching? I get that a lot of these shows are just marathon tapings, and they probably all blur together. But there's only so much covering Nigel can do. There's only so much of that he can do. There are times where David McLean will say something that hadn't happened, or he's remembering a different match than what actually took place, or whatever the case may be. There are times when that happens, and Nigel will kind of step in like, well, that's not what happened here, but such and such and this, that. This is one of them things, like, I don't know, how. I'm sure they get along. I don't know how well they function as a team. Although, just as I'm thinking about it, to be fair, and I'm going to shout out Santana on this also, because she pointed out what I was thinking about. It's like, one thing that I haven't heard lately is them overusing each other's names. It used to be to where it was a given that in a 10-minute match, you were going to hear a minimum of 10 times the name David. That you were going to hear. So much to the point that I put up the David counter on one of these. I wish I could remember the number, the name. Yeah. The number of the episode that I did it on. It would be the one following the steel cage tag team match between Sweet Heat and Pink and Swag. Because I know it was covering that match. But that was, I guess, the birth of the David counter. And as I put that out there, Zantara picked it up. You can go back through each one of those written reviews that she has underneath this, and you can see that she's got the count. 18 times here, 15 times there, 12 times there, 20 times. It just, every match there, she had a David counter. And surprisingly, to both of us, I think it's fair to speak for her here, to both of us, that counter has, I don't want to say it's not useless, but he hasn't been doing it like he has. Maybe the point has come across. Who knows? I think I said something to the fact of, if we walk into this next season and then suddenly he just stops saying David's name every which way that he can, I'm taking credit for that. I might have to take some credit for that. Sorry, this shout out to Bacardi for fueling this episode. All right. Where were we here? We got through the David counter, then we get back to the review, which is where Penelope Pink gets the microphone and she's about to start up, but then almost immediately when she starts talking, you get the alliance. They come out and interrupt, and Del Rey challenges Pink for the championship. Side note for Del Rey, I don't think that is any secret that I felt that she should have been the number one contender just straight up. She kind of alluded to some of that without out and out saying it. Like there's a point in there where she's like, I'm just asking for what I'm due. And I would agree. She's due a title shot. She never lost against the reigning champion at that time. There shouldn't even have been another championship match beyond the fact that they already had them taped and they had to air them. That's the downside of, again, taping stuff months and months and months in advance, much less taping it a year out. It doesn't give you a lot of wiggle room. But she comes out, she and the alliance, essentially saying, I'm due a title shot. There is no better argument that should be existing in WoW beyond Del Rey being the uncrowned champion. If there was any way whatsoever to pivot from whatever storylines and angles that they had with Tormenta to get something happening with Del Rey off of that, it should have happened. I mean, even if they had to, go on YouTube, not YouTube, go on eBay, go on Etsy, go on something, buy me a custom championship belt, have that thing redone somewhere by like a specialist that can paint. Got to get the right kind of painter, somebody that specializes in metal. But get somebody to make that thing look good for TV and, pay them for the quick turnaround and have her do some promos about being the uncrowned champion. You cannot have a champion here. When I put this person on the shelf, I am the only one that should be walking around with the championship belt. And she should have. She should have been walking around with a championship belt, whether WoW, in their kayfabe universe wanted to acknowledge it or not. That could have been part of the introduction. Self-proclaimed WoW champion, Reina Del Rey. Until we got the inevitable clash that they could have built towards. But, far be it from me to, provide you any sort of logical path. So, yeah, she challenges Pink for the championship. And then that brings out Santana Garrett, also demanding a title shot. And Garrett, her reasonings behind this are pretty weak, but it's been the same thing. Now, I like Santana Garrett, but it's like they didn't give her anything useful to say or do within this. It's just, if anyone deserves a title shot, it's me, your former WoW superhero, your former WoW champion and real life superhero. Like, that's all the credentials that she needs. That's it. And she corrected herself somewhere in there. It's like, if recent history teaches us anything, then she stopped and had to think about it. It's like, or just history in general, because her being WoW champion isn't recent history. It's literally a decade ago, which is why it's like, at what point, I brought this up before, at what point does being a former WoW champion no longer just give you an instantaneous title match or opportunity or make you number one contender, or that be the thing that you ride off of for the rest of your days in that company? And that's what it feels like. It just feels like, well, I was a former WoW champion, so I deserve a shot. Yeah, but I was like 2016. Why do you deserve a shot now? And what does being a real life superhero have to do with being a championship contender? Not to push for the heels, but in again the kayfabe universe of WoW, what does being a quote real life superhero have to do with getting a title shot? For that matter, what makes you a real life superhero beyond the fact that you're wearing a cape? Do you have superpowers? Are you stopping crime? You know, all of these things out the window. I'm just saying there's nothing there to really justify it. And it also speaks to, you know, maybe how thin their upper card babyface side happens to be. It doesn't feel like there's anybody else there other than Santana Garrett. So we get that, and I wrote, why? Why do you deserve another title shot? It's been, quite frankly, this same song and dance for Santana Garrett for over a year now. It's been going after the championship, getting the number one contender shot, winning said number one contender shot, either it be revoked, lost, or somewhere along the line get taken from her. And then she just repeats the process. And the shining reasoning behind her getting the opportunity is just what we said. Former wild champion and real life superhero. I am not opposed to Santana Garrett as a character going after the championship. I'm not opposed to her getting multiple title shots. But I do think that they need some level of consistency to that. You can't have two or three other people like, oh, well, you know, in order for you to get that, then you have to win this, you know, you have to win matches. You got to win like several times in a row for you to get it. Or the next thing is like, well, you know, you have to be a number one contender. You got to win a number one contenders match. Which is basically what this was, is two people that decided that they had an issue, like, all right, well, you got to have a number one contenders match. And there we are. McLean, at some point, gets a sore throat during this as he's trying to talk. Well, he guts his way through it, I guess, and then applies a main event of Garrett versus Del Rey for a number one contender shot against Penelope Pink. Fair warning, or I said just full disclosure, I should say. Before this aired, I saw the footage as it was shot by a fan. And I think I talked about that before from the Vegas tapings. And this was like the day that they were taping. So walking into this show just in general, I knew the outcome of pretty much all of it. So, we'll get there. But like I said, most of this I was perfectly fine with. It's just there's a point in this show where the road that we're on takes a stiff detour. But we'll move forward and talk about that as we move. This is a nice opening segment. It is predicated on the idea that what the WWE's created, we don't have a list of matches already set when we walk into the building. We're almost dependent on somebody deciding to have some words with each other, and then we'll just apply a match right then and right there. This is one of those things that's like, you know, whether people want to admit it or not, where the WWE goes, the industry follows, whether they intend to do it or they don't. Because that is a WWE practice top to bottom. Just come out here, play some music, interrupt, act like we didn't have a main event whatsoever, and then like, oh, well, you know, how about you and you two will have a fight? I'm like, well, what are we going to do if they didn't? Now, that's not as big of a deal. I'm just saying. That's one of those things that the WWE, during their rise to power, has started creating that they never had a main event listed. And then somebody just come out there and argue about some nonsense like, well, what are you doing tonight? I'm not doing anything. I'm ready to fight. You ready to fight? I'm ready to fight. Let's fight. And there you go. It's simple as that. Why bother doing matchups when we could just let that happen? Next segment. Sibley Scoles interviews Ashley Blaze, Kara Kai, Sandy Shore, and Tara Strike. Sibley's good here. This is kind of like what I felt when she did the contract signing. And not that she did anything specific. She was just the straight person to a somewhat ludicrous situation. But she needed to be the straight person. She's the backstage interviewer. Her job was just to get the information across and lay a foundation for them to plant the seeds of whatever issues that might exist. So this was to hint at the potential that they're not on the same page. It starts off with Blaze kind of speaking up like, yeah, you know, we're all on the same page. We're good with each other and da-da-da-da-da. You know, which is all well and fine. You get Kai that comes behind that is like, well, she doesn't speak for the entirety of the group, but yes, we are all on the same page and so on and so. And then, you know, you get Sandy Shore. You get Sandy Shore. She speaks into that. And then you finish it off with Tara Strike. What I will say, the positive of the four interacting, let's exclude Sibley from this. But what I will say, the positive out of that, well, not the positive, the thing I agree with. Like, even though Kai felt like she was being introduced as the problem child of this situation initially, the one thing that I do agree on is that there are points where Blaze on camera comes across as, she didn't say overbearing, but I'm going to say overbearing. Like sticking her nose in their business. And here, whereas theoretically the Dojo Defenders and their fight, Blaze is kind of like, hey, you know, it's we're all good here. We're unified. Like she is, like I just nominated myself to speak for the team. And in a real world environment, you can understand how Kara Kai would be rubbed the wrong way about it. The only thing that I don't really like is the same reasons, you know, that I just stated. Kara Kai was kind of presented as the problem child, whether she was trying to intentionally be a problem child or not. She had been presented at the start as the issue. Then it just kind of morphed into, well, we're both an issue here. Don't know if I agree with that, but whatever. So they have their backstage deal going on, and everybody gets to speak more or less. And it does carry the aura of, I can't say Blaze was butting in because she was asked to be there, but it does carry the aura of her maybe speaking out of turn, perhaps. But one thing I didn't really get is, like, I don't know what the deal was with them even advertising that this is going to be mystery partners. Like, why? I think everybody probably walked into this match absolutely certain about who the other two people were going to be. It's like, it's not like it's a secret. These are the only other two people that's even been involved. So again, it's not like it was a shock or a secret. These are the people that have been here already. It had been a shock if they turned around and they had two different people. I'm like, what? Why? Where? But that didn't happen. We got who you expected. Ashley Blaze, as presented by Tara Strike, at least, you know, we assume. and Sandy Shore being presented by Karakai, we assume. Although, just in the universe that they exist, I don't know why Karakai or any of them would have agreed to Sandy Shore being their partner. Now, look, hear me out. Hear me out. We're not talking about her as a wrestler or her outside of WoW or whatever the case would be. On WoW's TV, and technically outside of it, her win-loss record is not that great. In fact, I'm not even sure if I can remember the last time she did win. This would be, God, I can't think of a good tag team that's in WWE these days. Who's up there? I would have said DIY, but obviously Ciampa's gone. Well, you know what? Let's just assume, for the sake of this example, that Tommaso Ciampa's still there. And let's say that DIY is there and they're looking for two other partners. And one of the partners they get is LA Knight. So you got DIY, Johnny Gargano, Mr. Wrestling, the Psycho Killer, Tommaso Ciampa, and LA Knight. And then they get the Brooklyn Brawler. Now, it's nothing against Steve Lombardi, who is a talented man and made a living making other people look good. But in TV land with Steve Lombardi, the Brooklyn Brawler, he didn't win. He almost never won. And that's the situation that you got here. I don't think it was any shock, surprise, or any secret that the person that walked in with the least amount of wins was probably Sandy Shore. And that's saying that up against the Alliance. And you know I love them. I think they're arguably the bell to bell, maybe the most talented team that's there. But they are, at least for the time being, positioned as the maker of stars. We'll call them that. But it doesn't make any sense within their universe that Sandy Shore would have been the one picked. Beyond the fact that Karakai had, we're buddy-buddy now. It would have been a far easier pill to swallow. Especially considering that they had teamed already the previous season. And they had established a friendship on camera already. It would have been a far easier pill to swallow if the Sandy Shore spot was occupied by Xena Phoenix. It fits better. You've already have precedent for it. This is why, Tara Strike was gone, allegedly hurt. There's backstory there. And stuff you can play off of other than, just having Sandy Shore just kind of show up and then all of a sudden Karakai finds hanging out with her and being her buddy more important than her tag team partner. More important than even getting a title shot. You might be able to justify that with Phoenix. Because Phoenix came to her rescue. And you could say that, hey, they had months to build up this synergy and develop a strong friendship. And, they look at them now. All of that stuff. You could have played into instead of having to fast track Sandy Shore into being a best friend. Excuse me. So anyhow, we get that, and then this was set up allegedly because there was supposed to have been a trios match originally, and it got changed into an 8-person tag at the behest of Gambino. or at her suggestion. I don't know. And this is the next segment, by the way. The next segment is the match itself. We get out of the backstage, and regardless of what I thought about the logic of it, I mean, the backstage segment was fine. I do feel like Sibley did a far better job here. She didn't feel like, you go back and look at some of the stuff with her and maybe the Miami Sweet Heat, and definitely her, and sometimes with Top Tier. She seemed like she wanted to be a part of it, like part of the act, part of the joke, rather than just, being the professional there. Here she was the professional, and she did a fine job being the professional. So back to the match. The Alliance in this instance is represented by BK Rhythm, Gigi Gianni, Sylvia Sanchez, the lovely Sylvia Sanchez, and Ariana Gambino. So we get them taking on the Dojo Defenders, Shore and Blaze. Del Rey gets on commentary. She's a good heel on the mic. This is everything that I wanted it to be. Having a heel commentator on the mic that can call out things like this. There's a point in the match where she's like, is karate even legal? Which is a good point. Hey, this is a professional wrestling ring. Why is she using this? If there was a heel commentator to sit there with her, I'd jump right into it. Yeah, why is she using that? She need to go defend her dojo somewhere and get out this wrestling ring if she gonna do that. But here we go. The match, fine. Enjoyable, easy to follow, no complaints. I wrote Ariana Gambino was a bit less polished here, but it works for her in the situation because she shouldn't be good. And I will also add in the extra layer of she is the one thing in the match that gave me pause. Not because she did something wrong. But again, we're going to go with the narrative here. I was like, what? Okay, so what is the narrative that they're trying to tell? Are they trying to say that she's just as competent in the ring as everybody else? Or is she the manager, as I described before, the rich, stuck-up young lady who's living off her father's dime and his name, who woke up on third base thinking that she hit a triple? And the end of the match gives you the feeling of hey, I did it. Look at me. Look how good even though it was kind of handed to her on a silver platter to win. But that's what I mean, because you got that element where she illustrates that part of her personality. But earlier in the match, she cuts Tara Strike off cold. Like, it didn't take her cheating. It didn't take her having to do anything else. She shouldn't have been looked at remotely on the same level as a Tara Strike. She shouldn't have been. They did it, but she shouldn't have. In the babyface corner throughout the course of the match, you saw some arguing going on there with each other as they waited for the tag. I thought that was a nice touch. They could have just stood out there like bumps on a log and not done anything. But if anybody's listening to this show, they know that I'm a fan of the little things. And, that's not small. It is a thing, and it should have happened. I'm just glad that he did it. They had to relate the idea that we're not as cohesive as we would like to be. And they gave you that. Just with them standing around as Karakai in the ring, all of them like, will you move? It doesn't. I mean, we don't know what they'll say, but that's what it came off like. Like they were just bickering over just little things, just nonsense. There was a great scorpion kick on BK Rhythm by Kai. She sold that thing fantastic. And it just, I guess the only thing that you could have asked for is maybe a better shot of it, but that's out of their control. Yeah, that was the only other thing I was like, it's too bad it wasn't a better camera angle because it looked great. I just talked about Gambino cutting off Tara Striker. Didn't agree with that. But this is at the point of the match where you get the old, everybody hits a big move and that person rolls out and they wait for the next one to come in. Well, in this instance, that's where we got the Gambino cutting off strike, which again, probably shouldn't have happened. As good as she may be legitimately in the ring, and she might be, I don't know. She's playing the part of the manager, and probably the part of the manager should be a little less competent than the people that she's hiring. If she was as good as the people that she's hiring, she wouldn't need to hire them. You see what I'm saying? But Sanchez comes in. This is the end of the match. She hits a DDT on Shore. Surprise, surprise. And then she gives Gambino the opening for the pin. She pretty much just tags and puts her on top of her and allows her to pin her. And I love that Sanchez hand-delivered her a win. It would have been so much better if Gambino had been presented as athletically subpar. Like, that was the only thing within this match that I was like, because the way she operated, you would think that she might have been able to do that on her own. But if she had gone into this match where you know that she's not good in the ring, I know she's not good in the ring, her opponents know she's not good in the ring, she just doesn't know that she's not good in the ring. And Gianni, Rhythm, Sanchez, and maybe to some degree Del Rey, but she had walked off to get ready for a match. But if they had gone out of their way to protect her illusion that she was good and then give her that win, Sanchez hits the DDT on Shore, puts it down. The reaction that Gambino gave for that win was appropriate. It was everything that she should have did. If she had just had that element preceding it, it would have been so much better. It would have been so much better because people would have understood it. People that hadn't seen WoW at all, if she had just looked pitiful and incompetent and almost tripping over her own 2 feet. Well, I mean, she got to be clumsy, but not as strong as the people that she's dealing with or managing. And it becomes very physically evident to everybody that's watching that she is not in their level. But she gets the win anyway, and she goes around yelling about how she did it. And then if you can ride off of that for a while, especially if you got, her just getting on camera like, hey, remember that time that I beat so-and-so's butt? Yeah, when I beat her all by myself. She can start getting heat off of that. But that, what's done is done. And I doubt that they'll move towards that. If they do, I'm taking credit for it. Anyway, this was fine. It felt like it was mostly there to facilitate the win of the Alliance. And I shouldn't even say it that way. That's probably the wrong way to do it. Their win was en route of showing how these other 4 individuals do not get along. That's probably a better way to put it. Almost anybody could have been on the other side of it. And again, I love the Alliance. I want to see the Brat Pack succeed. Them specifically. I want to see them succeed. Although, and all jokes aside, I do think that Sanchez being there has added a little bit of extra to her as well. But I want to see Gianni and Rhythm succeed. I wanted to see them as a team. I think that there's something in there that they're just not being able to get out. They just do not have the opportunity to do it. Maybe one day. But it was fine. It was an enjoyable match, minus that one thing. But that one thing isn't enough to be like, I hate this thing. It's not that big of an issue. The next segment is a promo for the next match was Catalina Speed versus Scout Parker. And then we get the match itself. Catalina Speed with Veronica VaRoom versus Scout Parker. I do question. I wonder why VaRoom hasn't done anything. Maybe she was hurt, but Speed and VaRoom as a team, I can completely see that, and they don't have to win a bunch either. They could keep doing what they're doing. I have just gone in and accepted the idea that Speed's role is basically what Sanchez's role was a season ago. You're the heel that help puts the baby faces over and make them look good. That's her job. Or at least that's how it comes off right now. And if that's the job that she has to do, then that's the job that she should be doing. And she doesn't find one at that. So no harm, no foul. There's no issues there. I think I can't remember if I said it or not on the show. I know I talked about it with somebody, but the only thing that I had questioned was, and it's a take it or leave it, whether they should have had the backstage segment. Because I can appreciate the fact that they had a segment to explain why they're together. So I can never get on them for that. It is everything that I've asked for from the moment that they've opened their doors, at least this go round, that you explain the things that have happened rather than they just appear and the commentators have to cover everything. Here they actually put it on screen. They showed you VaRoom approaching her. They showed you Speed accepting her offer a week or so later. The only thing that made me question whether they should have did it or not is if her job is just to be this, I don't know if it really required it. It's nice that it's there. I just don't know if it required it. This with Parker, I did not know specifically whether Scout was going to be successful here, because every once in a while, WoW will trip me up with their booking. Like, well, wait a minute. She was winning a while ago. Why would you take her away from that? But, that wasn't the case here. Scout continues to seemingly grow. I still like Scout Parker. I didn't necessarily care for some of the things that happened around Scout Parker, but I like Scout Parker. Especially at this point, I think it's safe for me to just go ahead and say it was still one of their big mysteries when she just became Scout Parker from being ice cold out of nowhere and she never explained the how, the reasons why, what motivated anything like that. She just was. Scout at this point works good as an in-ring talent. We haven't really heard her speak on TV. But at the same time, it does feel like they are trying to work in some other aspect of her personality. I like that. Those parts of her I don't get, and I hope they don't screw it over by trying to overcomplicate things. Like this whole thrill seeker deal. The first time I even noticed anything about that was when she walks out and, they got the monitor and the LED screens in the back. I said, none of that stuff looks like anything that you're doing when you're a nature or an environmentalist. They're showing her, or not her, but they're showing people jumping out of planes and climbing mountains and snowboarding. I'm like, none of that's it's all outdoors, yes, but it's not necessarily built for bettering the environment. And so, as I said that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, she's a thrill seeker. I'm like, oh, okay. What does that have to do with the environment again? You know, like I said, I hope that it does not overcomplicate things. I enjoy or have begun to enjoy her work. Well, no, I'm not going to say begun to. I've enjoyed her work. And I've enjoyed her work for a while now. I think the first time I noticed anything that made me feel like, okay, she's pretty good, or maybe she's got something here, was I remember there was the point when she walked out as ice cold and her face just had disdain for the people. It's like the moment she walked through that curtain, she was who she was portrayed to be, and she treated the situation as if it were a real situation. I don't want to be bothered with you. Don't touch me. You know that. She became the person that she was purported to be, and that I'm like, I will always applaud her for doing that. I didn't necessarily care for the shortened run that she had with Greens. The matches were fine that she did with Big Rigs and Bourbon, the environmentalists versus them. Short, but they were fine. But outside of those things, she has continuously hit the bar for me. Like, she hasn't gotten to the point that she is just like blown me away. But she keeps hitting the bar. I say it every time I say it. I'm going to say it now. I so hope that she takes some outside booking somewhere. And I say that with nothing against WoW, or certainly not asking her to quit or anything like that, but I think there's going to be a difference for her if she goes outside of the WoW walls and learns to be a better professional wrestler, opposed to being a better WoW superhero, if that makes sense. And again, I'm not taking a shot at WoW. I know I've been accused of that, but you know, that nothing against them. Just saying, for her personally, and this is all going to be relative to what she wants out of her life as it relates to professional wrestling. If she doesn't see wrestling as anything that she's ever going to participate in beyond WoW, then doesn't matter. She can do what she's doing. I just happen to think that she has some knowledge in her that can be used elsewhere. That's all. So the match in and of itself is not very long. I know that's not overly surprising, but it's not a long match. It's probably like 3 minutes and some change, if that. That's one of the reasons, like, you know, I'd like to see outside this environment, because I don't know whether I would get the impression that she's probably having a memorized match rather than just calling it fresh in the ring. And I would rather see her get to the point where she can call it just in the ring. But the execution of what she does, she being Scott Parker, has been fine. I am still not completely sold on the outfit, the wowified version of the Scott Parker outfit, but you know, I'll survive it. It's not like it's gonna affect the match one way or the other. So we're all good with that. Speed is doing what Speed does. She is there to enhance the stars. I guess that's probably the best way that I could put it. it does say something for the fact that VaRoom is out there with her, but VaRoom's strong point is that she can talk. Why is she not getting on a microphone somewhere and trying to drum up some heat for Speed or herself or both? That's what her thing should be. She could probably have Speed lose. And if she was given enough time, talk her heat back. If she knew what she, had to work with in terms of talking about, just lie, make up something like, you didn't see that Scout cheated, she was holding the tights, you saw it all, something just to get her back in. That is where VaRoom's value is going to really come in, is her ability to get in front of a camera, get on the microphone. And she is a natural bullshit artist. And I mean that in the best way possible. She's good when she's outside of the ring. I will give her that. She just, in terms of walking out, applauding her client, for lack of a better term, yelling at the ref, all that good stuff. She's been good at that. Everybody here is playing their parts. Nothing to complain about. We do get a point. Oh, the Scout has started doing, I know she's added some shoulder blocks to her repertoire. They're nice looking shoulder blocks. I just wanted to, take a quick moment to point that out. She did utilize the Phoenix kick on Speed in the corner. As much as I'm okay with the shoulder blocks, I don't know how I feel about the Phoenix kick yet. It hasn't really had a good camera shot for me to see, but I guess, if it works for her, I suppose it, works overall. Maybe, who knows. But after she gets the Phoenix kick in on Speed in the corner, that sets her down. That then positions Scout to where she can hit a moonsault off of the second turnbuckle onto Catalina Speed. Some of that looked like she might have got a little bit of the knees and whatnot. That Speed, boy, I tell you, she is a willing crash test dummy, and you gotta give her that. I think back to her getting her face almost caved in by Genesis, and it's like, wow. She just had to get back up and go do it again. I mean, this didn't look nearly as bad, but, it's just wrestling. I know it's TV, but it ain't easy. I tell many people that just go to an indie show and walk up to the ring and slam your hand on it. It is amazing to me that the amount of people that think it's like a trampoline. But all of that to say is, bravo to Speed for being willing to lay there on multiple occasions and let somebody come off at the top of the second rope on top of her. So, hey, thumbs up to you, young lady. What the hell happened to Drusilla Blade? That just popped into my head. What happened with her? This has nothing to do with the show, but this episode, by the way. But what is that? One of we're away from it now. We're a couple of weeks away from that. Is that one of the worst debuts overall that has happened in wrestling? And forget whether or not she had a good match. Forget that. Just the step-by-step things that they did to introduce Drusilla Blade and the back end of what happened at these introductions. Is that a good debut to you? I mean, the first thing we got was next week my surprise is coming. And then you get Drusilla Blade, she shows up. Nothing inherently wrong with her, but is, how can I put, the Beast. Okay, let's use the Beast as an example. The Beast, and we're talking about Wow's Beast. Let me make sure I'm specific. The Beast was a physically imposing sight, regardless of whether she could wrestle well or not. She was going to draw someone's attention to her physically just looking at her. If Genesis had walked out with someone thereabout in terms of physique, height, whatever, to where she didn't look like everybody else that was on the roster, that might have been one big change or add on in and of itself. As it was, Blade she looked average, and in fact, she looked smaller than Genesis. So I don't know how well the debut of just her showing up worked, and she didn't do anything. She didn't do anything that particular episode, nor did she even play a major factor in the match overall. And I don't even mean like through interference. She just looked like she wasn't even there. Then you got the second time that she was on TV, and it was more like she was a standard manager. Didn't feel dangerous, didn't feel threatening, didn't feel imposing or anything like that. So you didn't really get anything off of her there. Then you got to having the match. Now, to be fair to Blade, she at least in the second time had some impact on how the match went. That much, yes, you can say that. But she didn't feel like an imposing figure. This weapons master, which again, can't say it enough. What good does that do in this environment? She's never going to break those blades out and cut somebody. Or attack them, for that matter. They're just there. And they're not going to be worth anything. And no one's ever going to, even if they tried to do it to throw people off, no one's ever going to believe that they are going to allow this girl to come in with sharp blades that are going to physically harm one of the other people on that roster. No one's going to believe that. They're going to laugh it off. And I don't mean that they got to sit there physically. I'm just saying they're not going to look at that and pay it any attention. It's just going to be something that happens within the course of the show and they'll move on. But as that happened, her affecting the win, by the time you got to her own debut match, would happen way too soon. They give you all this build up to her having that, and then she went out there and lost. Was there anything good that came from any of this? I mean, I'm serious. Because I know there's some people that want to justify and defend the decisions that WoW makes. And that includes people inside and outside of that company. So if there's a defendable point to that, by all means. But anyhow, that was just a sidebar. Scott Parker won the match with the second rope moonsault. I would have preferred if she was able to score that win with the parkour lariat, but I'm not against her nailing another finisher like a moonsault. Just have to go with that. It was a cold match, but it was fine for what it was. And Parker continues to gain, ground quietly. She's just kind of slowly inching herself up. Question is it going to amount to anything? Is it going to get her more interview time? Is it going to turn around and get her the underdog title shot? Is it going to put her in line of taking on a main eventer in a feud? Is it going to do any of those things? That would be what I would think it was pushing towards as she has started doing what she's doing. And she's clearly gone babyface. So who knows if that is the route that they were looking to take or are going to take. I was also shocked about this. I wrote this down. This is my verbatim words. Wow, plug their own podcast. Holy shit. I couldn't believe it. They actually plugged it. And I say good for them. Good for them. After the match, Zayn starts promoing for the main event. So you got that in anticipation. The next segment is Reina Del Rey and the Alliance video package. This includes a montage of Del Rey. We'll call it hurting people. The package was nice, although I personally wanted clips that made her look more impactful. Now, that's just personal preference. But I would say, give me anything where she's knocking somebody's head off with a clothesline, any sort of slam or something like that. You get me those clips. But again, like I said, I'm not saying that what they did was wrong. Just saying I would have asked for something else. But this also, as is planned, includes a promo for the Alliance. I don't think anybody's going to question how good or bad she is on the mic. Reina Del Rey is good on the mic. That was evident when we saw her come out and challenge Pink. Well, now that I think about it, you had a group of people that were pretty good there. The only person I really feel like gets handicapped out of what she could be saying is probably Santana Garrett. But yeah, this package was pretty good. Set it up for what we're going to see in the main event. And there's nothing really else that you could add to that. Beyond, like I said, if it were my personal choice, I would have had different clips. But we move on. Next segment is Santana Garrett's video package. This is good, but it feels like I should have seen this sooner. That was another one, it's another one of those moments. But I will admittedly say it doesn't feel like it was like misplaced from a year ago. Like when we saw Princess Ozzy have her video package on screen, it's like, why am I seeing this now? This should have been playing last year sometime. Here, yeah, okay, would have been nice if I saw this a couple of weeks back. But it don't feel completely out of place either. But here is where it starts to go a little off the tracks for me. As nice as this package was, it was produced well, nice location, heartfelt package. This is what I was asking for. This is everything that I said for months. Why are Zayn and McClain constantly bringing up that she's doing it for her father, or she's doing it for her dad? She's trying to win the Wild Championship for her dad. And she never said a word about it. Now we get this, and we hear the story. We hear her talk about her dad. We hear her talk about this is all I ever want to do. By the way, this is exactly what I'm talking about when I say they have to be giving her something. They have to. Because the Santana Garrett that was on the mic in front of that crowd is a one-note answer. This Santana Garrett that sat down and had this was a person. And you felt for this person. That's all that you could ask for. That's like you felt for this person, especially when she's talking about her father. I know I said this, was like, who out there cannot understand the horror that cancer causes to a family. Whether that was your personal family, extended family, or friends of your family, or coworkers, so there's a good chance that somewhere in your life you've known somebody that dealt with it. I know I have. And in some cases, my extended family, my friends, personal friends. I had a friend that never even graduated high school because she got cancer in the 7th grade. Fought with it. And I felt Santana when she said it. She fought until she couldn't fight no more. That touched me. Seriously. So that's why, like, this is a person here. I feel for her. When I see that, I want to see you win. I want to see you succeed. I want to root for you. But then it turned into, now I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this for my father anymore. Now, that didn't necessarily take away that I would want to see her win, but at the same time, it's like, what? Come on. This is all that McClain has been talking about for probably a couple of months now. And you know she's doing this for her father, Kenny G. That's all we heard. And the first time that she's on camera is like, I'm not going to say denounce it, but she more or less like, well, yeah, but now, and he'd understand I'm doing this for me. I was like, what the? And it took me right back to where I was. I was like, okay, now this video package is good, but that statement there would have been a good bookend statement to her saying that she was doing it for her father months ago. And we saw it, and we heard her, and we felt it. What we got was David McClain on multiple occasions. She's doing this for her dad. She's doing this for her dad. She's doing this for her dad. Nothing wrong with the narrative. But I stand on it should have come out of her mouth. It should have been her that said it. Not the messenger relating her story. And then when you finally get her message directly from the horse's mouth, the message changed. So there we were with that. And I was like, it doesn't change that she's a babyface. It doesn't change that the story is heartfelt. But it just, like, why was there even lead into this with them talking about her doing it for her father all this time? Never to have her say anything about it. Only to find, when we finally get there, it's like, well, that's not why I'm doing it. That's not my motivation. It was, timing aside, it was the more genuine of her on-camera moments. And I feel like this is the Santana Garrett that WoW needs. Not the Santana Garrett that walks out and, hey, I'm a former WoW WoW champion and I should get a shot because I was. And I'm the only WoW superhero. Not that one. This one. The one here that gave you her life story. The one here that told you, this is all I've ever wanted to do. When everybody else was saying doctor, lawyer, this, that, I say a professional wrestler. This Santana Garrett, the one that sat there and poured her heart out in front of the camera. That's the one that you need. She could be the top of the mountain, the babyface that place needs. Whether we're going to have that, time will tell. Next segment, Reina Del Rey is walked through the casino floor, going to the ring. This gives McClain time to do the voiceover as she's walking. He's talking about Del Rey needed to bring what she's got to squash Garrett's new desire to win, talking about or alluding to that she is now motivated by her own drive. Okay, so now I said at the beginning of this that this show was 3/4 very good, or good at least, right? And then I said it was going to take a sharp turn. Well, after the promo that tells you what next week's main event is, that's when the turn starts. So the next segment was next week's promo, which is Gabriella Cruz versus Penelope Pink for the Wild Championship. I'm fine with that. But then we get to the segment following that, and that segment is the main event. And this is where we start driving down the wrestling highway. And there's the fork in the road. And to the right, we got serious contendership. And to the left, we got Cartoon Land. And I'll let you decide which way to decide to go. This begins with Del Rey, which she was previously walking out alone, but suddenly her entire group is with her as she's walking through the entrance. That was just funny to me personally. Like, okay, we just saw her walking through the casino floor by herself, and then just, all right, guys, here I am, boom. You know, I guess they're all waiting by the LED entrance to walk out with her. And they all come out. The alliance comes out in full. Garrett then comes out following this, and to her credit, as she comes out, they get a camera shot. I think we get an overhead view. You see her go to the left of the ring. The alliance is there in force. And she doesn't do the stupid thing like just nonchalantly walk on by anyway. No, she turns around and goes opposite direction because, okay, that might not be the safest place for me to go. Go this way. But as this is happening, McClain is on the commentary. It's like, this is unfair. How is it that the entire alliance gets to come out here like this? I got an idea. I got something popping in my head. I got an idea, Nigel. Hold on. I got a thought. Now, my whole thing is like, well, why is he questioning why the alliance is coming out there? Ain't he the matchmaker? And then not as I was saying that, not 2 seconds later, he got up and showed that he had the power to do something about it. He gets up from the commentary booth, calls an armed security guard, well, I believe at least a taser, calls a security guard to take the alliance out of ringside to the back. Not only does he do that, first he gets up and he tells the referee. Then he waves in the security. But not only does he wave in the security to escort him out, he walks up the ramp with him. So everybody can see that he has exercised his wild powers and made this match fair. As they get taken out, and he gives the thumbs up to the audience like, yeah, I did it. And then we see the alliance. So this is a little bit later on in the window, or the picture window, whatever. We see the alliance being locked up by the security guy in some storage / laundry room. It clearly wasn't a designed holding cell. Somebody just saw a door with some bars on it, like, yeah, that worked. I was like, okay. I would have rather they just skipped the shot, just saying, look, just take them out. We don't have to see them getting locked in the fucking laundry room. What authority does that guy have to do that in the first place? He ain't a cop. At this point, it's kidnapping. You're holding me against my will for no good reason. Anyhow, it should be said at this point that this has very little to do with the participants of any of this. But the narrative of this thing, like, I don't even consider the match that important. As much as I like Garrett and as much as I like Del Rey, and I would want to say that it is, I don't consider this match all that important. This match, when it was all said and done, felt like it was just there so the Enlightened had something to do. Which is the other half of, why the fuck is this happening? So, anyhow, we, like I said, we get the Alliance being locked up against their will, obviously, by somebody who arguably has no authority to do so, in the laundry room. And that's what I'm going to call it, the laundry room. So we have the match. And it was primarily one-on-one. It wasn't that bad. It was, like I said, the end is what was important. It didn't really... What happened throughout that was just entertainment, just for the sake of that. But the important portions were what happened after the bell. One thing that needs to be applauded, because she does it so well, and she has done it so well for a while, is the fish hook, is the sleight of hand fish hook spot that Del Rey does. Because at first glance, like, man, that is gross. I don't want you licking your finger and then sticking it in my mouth. And when you're not paying attention to it, it comes off as a gross thing, which I'm pretty sure is absolutely by design. I have no doubt that she does that with every intention of grossing the audience out. But it's I am going to do this. I'm going to show you that I'm doing this. Make sure everybody can see it. And just when I get ready to put it into my victim's mouth, I'm going to switch. I mean, it's great. It is great. I can't argue that. That's why I say it's a great sleight of hand. Okay, so let's just get to the end of it, and this is where I had the problem. I wanted to be as fair to this as I can, but I was like, come on, bro. Are you kidding me? This is just like a step too far. When you consider everything that just took place. At the beginning of this, just to recap, we had a team of 4 people come out the ringside to back up Del Rey. On the sight of them, they hadn't done anything yet because the match hadn't started. On the sight of them, Dave McClain just decided, you know what? They don't need to be here. I'm going to kick them out. Takes off his commentator hat, puts on his matchmaker / boss executive producer hat, and has them kicked out in full view of everybody that's witnessing this. And took credit for it in so many, not in so many words, but his action, the thumbs up to the audience, took credit for that. Came back down, sat down. Then we get to this point of the match. We got an entirely different group walking out the ringside. That's not exact, and I mean walking. They're taking their time. There's no urgency here whatsoever. And they're calling this. What are they doing? Why are they coming out here? All right, so my first question was, since you had the authority, the ability, and the inclination to get the Alliance out of there without them doing a single thing. Remember, the match hadn't started. They hadn't cheated. It was just on the sight of them being there and the idea that they might do something, he got him out so she'd have a fair match. But now all of a sudden, the idea of her having fair matches is out the window because I'm just going to let the Enlightened come out here. No, I'm going to watch them do whatever it is that they're doing. Why couldn't he just get right back up again and go to the base of the ramp like, hey, what are you doing? Why are you here? Now I realize they're trying to get to a point. But I'm saying, like, even in your kayfabe universe, some of this has got to make some sense. I'm sorry. Some of this has got to make some sense. Even in your kayfabe universe, it's got to. He already illustrated that he has the full ability and authority to make these decisions and make them happen. Why didn't he do it right then? It's not like it's a secret what they were getting ready to do. So then we get the Enlightened, who all stroll. I don't even want to say walk, strolled to the ring, essentially surrounding it. And even though it was 5 of them out there at ringside, Santana Garrett and the referee decided to fixate on Samantha Smart, obviously. The ref not doing his job. I mean, because I'm sure, you know, he falls in line of like TV and movie characters. If you ever notice, like in TV and movies, that those characters do not have any periphery senses unless you're like a lead. If you're just a soldier walking around in a military movie, there's a good chance that they only are going to see the things that are directly in front of their face. They have no peripheral vision. They don't hear anything on to the side. Unless it meets the narrative of the story, they can't hear it or smell it. That is what this referee is like. Because there's no way that he didn't see them and out of his peripheral vision standing there to the left of him. But even if we were going to go with that, as the Classmaster hands her prized magical book over to Reina Del Rey as Santana Garrett is distracted, Reina clobbers Santana Garrett in the head with the book. Now, I am not going to be one to discount or doubt the strength that Del Rey has when she swings a book or a bat or a crowbar or anything. But I will say that Santana Garrett was knocked unconscious for an inordinately long period of time. It's like once she got clobbered with that thing, she just stayed gone. It was as good as latching some chloroform onto her face. Del Rey wins. Like I said, the match and its outcome secondary to all this other stuff that's going on. Del Rey wins with the pin after, like I said, she knocks Garrett out with the magical book. And then the Enlightened get a stretcher that just happened to be already positioned there under the ring. And they knew this, got it, slid it into the ring, put the unconscious Santana Garrett on it, slid her out of the ring, and in funeral procession style, strolled back up as slowly as they possibly can as Samantha Smart oversees this thing. And neither Zane, McLean, security, referees, anybody in the back did a thing about this. Nobody. I mean, they didn't even try. Like, look, I get that if you're going to do the angle, like, I don't agree with the angle. Okay, they already had the old brainwashing angle before. And I would only assume that that's what they had. But, as a matter of fact, now to say that, they had the kidnapping angle too. It's all wrapped in the same thing. Anyhow, I get that if that's the angle that you're determined to have, fine. But in most cases, if you're trying to, let's call it for what it is, commit a crime, the clock's ticking. The clock is ticking. The moment that you decide that you are all in on committing this crime, whatever it happens to be, the clock is ticking. For you to do whatever it is that you're doing and get out. Not that I would know about that personally. You know, I had friends, maybe. Well, this years past. I can say, yeah, I had friends. It's 30 years ago and it was a different time. Anyhow, that's not the point. If you're going to do dirt, once you accept that role, beating somebody up in public, stealing, kidnapping, whatever it is, the clock is ticking. This is the most non-urgent kidnapping I've ever seen in anything. I mean, it wouldn't have even been bad and probably would have helped the Enlightened get over to some level if a few scattered baby faces ran out there and tried to stop them. And the Enlightened cut them off, beat them up, left them laying, and then still took Santana Garrett out. She could have been coming to and pandemonium. If anybody should be using the chloroform rag, it should have been her. And then you can start getting that stuff over, or the weirdness of them. A few referees. This is where having female referees there would have been fine, because if you got 2 or 3 of them, they could have came out there and bit the bullet too. They try to wave them off. The Enlightened take them out. Something at least to show the effort. The same effort that we just saw less than 10 minutes ago. Because this time, the first go round getting rid of the alliance was what? To stop them from cheating? This is an entire kidnapping taking place in front of your face. Is this not a worse thing that's happening? I mean, the worst the Alliance was ever going to do was make sure that Reina Del Rey won the match. Maybe beat Santana Garrett up. That was it. The Enlightened literally kidnapped this woman, walked her out of the building. Well, I keep saying building, but out of the area. How's that not worse? Why are you sitting there watching it? Why are you sitting there watching this? Like, oh, what's going on, Nigel? What do we do? Oh, my God. I mean, you have to be able to see the ridiculousness of that. I'm sorry. Even if you dare, you got to see the ridiculousness of that. That is just absurd. That whole thing is absurd. They walk up the rep and then they walk past Sibley and they're chanting, what word is it? Enlighten her. I'm sorry, my mind went back to the movie Freaks for a minute, and because their chant was one of us, one of that, which they might as well have been doing. They might as well have just been saying one of us, one of us. But they walk her out right past Sibley, who, let's call it for what it is. She did nice at the beginning and even did nice here. But it's not like we've ever seen Sibley close out the show with some backstage interview to nobody. I mean, what we said, maybe in 2 years you might have got it once. And I'll give it that kind of room for error. But they walk out there and it's just like, what's happening here? What's going on? Santana, and they just keep walking. Like there's absolutely zero threat that somebody was going to stop them from doing what they were doing. I understand that most of her running buddies are no longer available. We don't have a Princess Aussie. She hasn't really established on screen, I guess, with a relationship with Tormenta. Americana's not there. So the close running buddies, yeah, sure, I get it. But there's some undercard people they could have ran out there to try. I ain't say succeed, but to try to stop the Enlightened. They at least look like somebody put some kind of effort into it. And I don't know what it is that the excuse that David couldn't have done anything. I don't know what that would be. Or for that matter, like security. In fact, I probably wouldn't even have thought about security right off the bat, at least, if he hadn't illustrated the fact that security was there. And again, what's worse? The Alliance intervening to maybe trip her up or hit her in the back with a chair or something like that, and she'd live to fight another day, or this public crime that I'm going to commit in full view of all these Las Vegas attendees. And yes, wrestling is loaded with nonsensical stuff. Even the best of them have done some nonsense. And we all know that pro wrestlers are the worst criminals in the world. They plan their stuff out right in front of the camera. So I'm not getting completely on that, but I have to say that just the idea that was thought to be a good idea. The idea of that this like, yes, this makes sense, because once you get up and get that one lone security guard that we have here, then they'll all know that they have no choice but to be taken. That would be just ridiculous. Like, well, we couldn't call security because he was too busy standing in front of this locked steel door. And what was the point of him being there? Because I'm pretty sure they could have just turned the latch and got out. But what was really the point of him being there? He could have just said, look, y'all need to get out. Go to the locker room or something. It was just, oh, boy. It was something. It was something. That's all I could really think about. I wrote that. What was the point of kicking out an entire group from ringside just to allow another one to do what they want? And not just do what they want. At no point did they rush to accomplish it. It's not like they ran out there and I didn't have time to get security over here, or the people didn't get here from the back fast enough because they were in the middle of changing or something. It's like none of that happened. They went out there for the sake of this universe, knowing absolutely that no one's even going to bother. So, why? Why allow one group to do what they wanted to do and the other one not? And it seems like the only group that ever took a hit off of McLean flexing authority was the Alliance. I remember the last time they got booted out of some place, it was pretty much the same thing. You guys cheated, or you lied to me, so you're out of here, or whatever that thing was. Meanwhile, everybody else is do what they feel like doing. Why is the Alliance on the tail end of that, the wrong end of the stick, or whatever, how that phrase goes? Why is it always, why is it them? And at this point, I was like, here again, I wish there had been a heel announcer. Del Rey should be saying it, or somebody. But there's no way that he could have allowed. Well, no, Del Rey couldn't do it because she benefited from it. So scratch her. She wouldn't be a good candidate. But it's some heel announcer should have been there to be calling out McLean. I was like, because there's no way that group came out here and did what they did without some sort of coercion or some inside track. And there's only one man that could have done that. McLean. I mean, he might as well just be part of the act. I'm pretty sure he wants to anyway. But why? Yeah, why would security do that? Would lock them up? That ain't his job. Why would this other team get to come out here without any sort of reprimand or being stopped? Why didn't anybody attempt to stop them? And, you know, in the kayfabe world of wrestling, we can accept that the cameraman is going to just record what he sees. Because that's the way it's for everything, not just wrestling. You're a cameraman for the news, you're recording what you see if you happen to be there on the site. You're a cameraman on reality TV, you're recording what you get. Sports, you're recording what's there. That's the job. That's what they pay you to do. So we ain't expecting the cameraman to put the camera down and go over there and stop him. I'm not expecting Sibley to do anything. One, because she's the backstage interviewer. She's not paid to be a wrestler or combatant, so to speak. I'm glad that she showed some concern. Somebody at least has to. But that's the one element in that did make sense to me. Like you would want Sibley to maybe do something about it, but you also know that, well, she's not somebody that gets into combat sports, at least not in this world. You don't see her do that. She might not want to take a punch to the face, and it's 4 of them. So trying to at least make the effort of say, hey, Santana, that's the only thumbs up I can give this segment. Is that verbally there was at least effort, but she stayed in the lane that I expected her to stay in, and in the lane that she should stay in. But everything else, like in segments 1 through 3, or however you want to break this show up, all of that was perfectly fine, and then we got here. And that has nothing to do with the talents at hand. I got to make sure I made these things clear now. But that has nothing to do with the talent at hand. But the narrative of this is terrible. Is terrible. Just within this match. Now, if it goes and makes some sudden turnaround to being a masterpiece, that's one thing. But just within the course of this, it's ridiculous. And it goes back to the same problem that WoW has had from the moment that it came back on TV to right now, and it's probably never going to change. But why on earth is McLean have the power and the authority to do things at one point in time, but then not at others? It's like it just turns on and off out of convenience. He should have been one role or the other. Appoint someone to be the general manager of WoW, and on camera take the role of being the guy in charge off. Start with that. That's one route to go. And I've already suggested if that were the case, you get somebody that WoW regards as a legend, for lack of a better term. Get Erica Porter, Jungle Girl, somebody like that to come in to fill that spot. Or you do it the other way around, where you take yourself off of commentary, put somebody else in there to work with Nigel, which would probably only help the commentating team, to be quite honest. And then he goes to the back and he's the guy. And then you bring him out for special occasions. Otherwise, it's all on the referees. But when that special occasion comes, he gets to come out there, and ladies and gentlemen, executive producer of WoW, the creator, Mr. David McClain, and he could do it, his special deal, get his pop, read whatever proclamation, award whatever championship, sign whatever contract, whatever the case may be, and then disappear for another couple of episodes until the next time he's needed. But here it's just, they got to do it all. So where is it that they're going, the Enlightened with Santana Garrett? Like I said, there was no rushing to get this accomplished. It was just, we'll get there when we get there, damn it. We ain't running. As we cart you off to encyclopedia hell, you will learn forever, Santana Garrett. And never graduate. You'll always be 5 points short of graduation. Anyhow. But that was it. That was the episode. I want to say that it could have been better. It really could have been. The plus is that the segments preceding it are not just swallowed up and ruined by what happened following. Fab Four promo, Lana Star. I can't praise her enough. She falls into that category for me now. If there have been any surprises out of the last year 4 now, if there's any surprises, the fact that I like Lana as a manager as much as I do surprised me. I was expecting to get the same old Lana Star, and is still that there, but she is feeling like a wrestling manager. And I love it. The opening promos, fine. I feel like Santana Garrett in that environment was not presented as on par verbally as a Penelope Pink or Reina Del Rey, and quite possibly Lana Star. Even though we saw another side of her in front of the video camera during the video package. The Dojo Defenders deal. It's somewhat murky waters. I mean, I don't have an issue with the program. It just felt like it was starting off and heading in a different direction initially. It felt like this was more a lean on Karakai to start. I mean, here you're talking about somebody that came in on the day of their title shot. Not just a match, on their title shot. And why? Because I was just running around getting coffee with Sandy Shore. So if anything, I was feeling like it was going to lean towards that as far as, all right, well, this is the growing heel in this environment, but it didn't feel like that when you got back like the following week. Then they started adding in things to make Karakai sound sane. Ashley Blaze, she pointed out the fact that she's buttoning her business, and she was. So I don't know, I guess the story is okay, but I don't know where they're going with it now. The waters are murky. It started off feeling relatively clear, and then they just added in other storyline plots, and before you know it, this crystal clear blue water, it got a dose of Blaze into it, and it got the Dojo Defenders into it, and Sandy Shore, and the green, and the purple, and the black, and the gold, and the silver, and all that stuff like that just murkied the water up. I can't see anymore. The alliance I thought was fine. Like I said, that I would have liked it much better if Gambino had been the typical manager. Even though she responded as a typical manager at the end, she didn't have that mentality throughout the match. Parker is continuing to grow. Speed has adopted her position within WoW. I don't know what her aspirations happen to be, but at least right now she's helping to get some other people some wins, I guess. We'll call it that. And then we got to this, Del Rey versus Garrett, which on its own would probably have been a good match just as is. I'm sure if I asked any one of the participants of that match, give me a scenario where the Enlightened come out here without doing this thing. And I'm talking Garrett and Del Rey. I'm pretty sure one of them, if not both, would have come up with something like, well, we could try this or do that. And this just did not seem like it was a sensible thing to do. At least not in terms of the logic put behind it. I mean, Del Rey could have came out to the ring by herself. If that were going to be the case, there was no point in even having the ejection, other than to show that you could. It could have been just as easy to be like they're barred from ringside. They're barred from ringside, but the Enlightened aren't. And then there's your door opening right there, without having to have unveiled that I have the full power and ability to do something about this because I just did it. Well, I mean, and that's just one example, and that's just one that I thought of right now. I would almost be willing to bet money that either one of them would have come up with something easily as quick. But that was the episode. Fine. Not necessarily how I would have liked it to have ended. The kidnapping angle, that's a hard one. That's a hard one to swallow. It just leaves so much room for error. And you have to ignore so much. I remember saying this when they did the whole thing with Princess Ozzy. This is when, I guess they didn't really have an official name, but Siren the Voodoo Doll and Holiday kidnapped her and brainwashed her to be part of their group. And then suddenly she wasn't. But just that as the example, you're having to give so much leeway. I was asking at that point, it's like, where is this girl's friends? Like, she was literally kidnapped out of this building. No one looked for her for a week. And we're talking about their TV logic now because that's how they presented it. No one looked for her for a week. And then when she shows back up, she is clearly not the same person that you saw when she left. And no one bothered to do anything about this or speak to her or get out of there or anything. Even the people that run this place just like, oh, well, she's just a zombie these days. Anyway, back to the action. Like, it makes you have to ignore things. It makes you have to just be like, we can only live this, the life of the law or right and wrong 7 days at a time. Or once every 7 days. Like, I don't know what you did with her, but, I guess we'll find out next week. Like that. That makes the commentators not give a shit. Like, we'll find out next time on Wild, folks. So what did happen to Princess Aussie? And I would imagine this is probably going to be the same thing. It's like, you'll find out 7 days from now. But anyhow, I mean, the kidnapping angles, or more specifically, long-term kidnapping angles, are not an easy thing to pull off in wrestling. There's really no point to it. I mean, I guess once we got to the era where we started producing miniature movies within, wrestling segments, then yeah. But you're asking the audience just to, give a lot of leeway to the logic of the land, man. Like when TNA was going through their identity crisis, they did pretty much the same thing. But that was also during the era where they had people teleporting and, going into a different dimension, having demons and whatnot. So they weren't anywhere close to naming anybody for reality. But James Storm and his little group, when he would, I guess, beat up and brainwash one of their guys, Manic, that was when they was just, like I said, they was pretty much making wrestling segments, mini movies. So I am not trying to say that WoW is unique or the only ones that have tried this, or only the ones that did. I'm just saying that, like, even with that, it's like the same rules apply. You're trying to take something that is almost completely preposterous and make it believable for the audience. Because I don't think anybody that's watching WoW is going to be halfway concerned about Santana Garrett's health. They're not going to look at that and think that, well, they just carted her off. I wonder what they're going to do. And I don't know if she, even on a character standpoint, not in real life, but as a character standpoint, I don't know if any of them have made the audience feel for them that much. The video package that they gave with Santana did a lot to push that, to help you feel for it. But it's the first time we heard it. And she's being taken away. The Enlightened really just got there and already doing this. They really haven't built themselves up as an entity or a force or a faction. They showed up, they had the one match, and now they're off into kidnapping. Let's just run right up into felony. So I don't know. I guess it's just going to depend on your wrestling level of tolerance. But as it is right now, with WoW primarily being more grounded than it had been, I mean, it's certainly not what it was, but it's more grounded than it had been. I am really curious where this is going to go. How they're going to make this, or attempt to make this thing work. Time will tell. And that was it, folks. That's the show. Like I said, it was fine. That was my summary of the individual things. We'll keep our eyes open for the next one and see where this Garrett Enlightened storyline goes. If you are listening to this on YouTube, and do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe. If you are getting this via standard podcast layout, the audio format, a good rating or review will go a long ways for whatever platform you're on, because we are on greater platforms everywhere. If you don't know where to get all of those, or you just prefer to have it in a central location, then you can go to WPNWrestling.com. It has everything there, including the little podcast widget when you scroll down. And above that, a 24-hour day, 7 day a week, full stream of all the wrestling that has been shot for the WPN since 2013. It's been a while. And as I always say, it's got the faces in there that you may recognize, going across multiple promotions, including MLW, including TNA, including AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE, and yes, even WoW. So with that being said, thank you for your time. Thank you for tuning in. Always appreciate it. And as always, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you on the next go round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.